So, after 3 months of waiting, I'm already back discussing Sonic. I'm not a Sonic tuber, I swear! I swear! If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's because I made a video on the 1st and 2nd season a few months back saying I didn't like the show all that much, and I feel it wastes its big multiverse premise in something kind of generic. But since the show was picked up for 24 episodes with only 16 episodes being released at the time, I already knew I'd have to come back to discuss the 3rd, probably, most definitely, final season of the show. Unfortunately though, I can't review it at the moment because the 3rd season isn't out yet. So, review on hold until I see it, and by seeing it, I mean right now. In the not too distant future. What the fuck was that? And why am I the only one who liked it? Okay, so I feel season 3 is a big improvement over the first 2 seasons, in my opinion. I mean, my opinion. You should kill yourself now. I get the sense, in a lot of ways, this is a very satisfying conclusion to the show. Big emphasis on the word most ways, because I do feel like they forget some stuff, like to wrap up, and it kind of feels a bit messy overall. I think the season needed a little bit more time to have that sense of closure. This season is more or less just one big 3rd act to the rest of the show. Like 4 out of 7 episodes was just the big final battle, and I gotta be honest, I kind of loved every second of that. Like I've said previously, this show kills it when it comes down to fight scenes, and since the majority of this season is just one big brawl, it doesn't disappoint or dip in its animation quality. Although, gotta be real for a minute and say that although the battle was cool, it did feel a bit drawn out. Since each episode is like 20 minutes in length, that meant the final battle was like an hour long and consistently switching between who was winning and who was losing back and forth for like an hour. Although, maybe that was just a fault on their behalf, because they made the final battle start at episode 4 of a 7-episode season. That's like 4 episodes worth of just battle. Although, gotta be honest, saying that Sails and Mangy died via suicide grenade for 2 episodes straight and playing it completely straight, saying they died, is the best thing the show has ever done, and I will never ever take that for granted. Although once again, like the last 2 seasons, Shadow for some reason is always awkwardly shafted. I don't know why this is happening. I'm gonna have to guess Sega interfering, because it never feels like natural, it always feels forced. Like when season 2 did it, it kinda made sense, like he couldn't go through the portals correctly. Like it was a bit flimsy, but it made some sense. But now he just like gets punched off the side by like a metal Sonic, and then he's gone for a couple episodes. Luckily not as long as season 2, but still it's just super weird. The only reason I'm really upset about this is because Shadow is like the best character that the show has to offer. Like him and Sonic have the best dynamic, they always have the best scenes, they work off each other the best. I wish I had more of him. Also, I'd like to say I finally like Prime Sonic. He's finished his character arc and become more of the Sonic we've come to know, so he feels more like just Sonic. So I ended up enjoying him a lot more in this season compared to the last 2, where he felt more like he was growing into Sonic. On that note though, I think all the voice cast did a stellar performance, and I think I'd say I'd love for some of them to stay as the main cast. The ones I'm mainly referring to are Devon Mack as Sonic.
We need to leave this world. You don't have to tell me twice.
Kazumi Evans, sorry if I got that name wrong, as Rouge.
The fox is onto something.
Huh? Rouge? How did you get in here?
He played you for a fool, Blue.
Ian Hanlon as Shadow.
In the lab, you kicked up the prismatic energy when you ran fast and crossed over into the void.
And Vincent Tong as some of the variant Knuckleses. Although the one voice I would prefer to stay is his Renegade Knuckles voice.
I've been waiting a long time for this, traitor.
I've heard from actual fans from the show that this was their least favourite season, but to me it was my favourite. None having my favourite episode, I'd still say season 2 episode 1 with just Sonic and Shadow is still the best, but as an overall season, I think season 3 knocks up as my favourite. I think the fact that it was just in one specific location throughout the majority of the season, instead of just switching through the 3 and 4 the entire time, made it feel a little bit more coherent and made me enjoy it a lot more as one big story. Although I do want to say I find 9 to be a relatively better main antagonist than the Chaos Council. Relatively. Like, this is a Tails who's from a universe where Sonic never existed. Is from a universe where Eggman took over. He's more of an edgy loner now and looking out for himself. That shit's cool and all, until you realise the main threat is this fucking Goober that I kind of can't take seriously the more I think about it. Like, it's just Tails, man. Like, to kind of think that all the variants of Sonic, Knuckles, Amy, Rouge, and all the Eggman have to come over to fight this fucking edgy Tails. Like, bro, this is kind of funny the more I think about it. The biggest issue this season has, to me, is Prismatic Sonic. What do you mean you don't remember Prismatic Sonic? They only used him one time. The way he used the form in Season 2's finale felt like he was just tapping into the power, since the prism hadn't even been complete yet. What was it going to be like when the prism was complete? Like, was he going to be like Hypersonic or Rainbowy, or was he going to be a completely new form? Oh, fuck me if we're ever finding out now. Good to know that we can add Prismatic Sonic to forms that were only used briefly and will probably never be touched again. Just like Cybersonic and Dark Supersonic. I don't know where else I can slot this, but there's this one scene at the start of episode 3 with this really ugly sprite work that doesn't look like official. More like what a 12-year-old would make with their first time with using sprite. I'm aware they've done this a couple times in some earlier episodes, but it was never this bad. It was a little bit wonky, but never this egregious. Also, they were like meaningful flashbacks to show Sonic's relationship with said character. This just comes out of nowhere. Also, why do Sonic and Tails have these weird edited Sonic and 2 sprites when Eggman is just ripped straight out of Sonic Advance 3? Like, I wish I was joking, but Gem was right there on his mech. I don't think that was intentional. Although maybe it was intentional, since the boss sound in Sonic Advance 3 is used in this exact scene that they're paraphrasing. Then why the fuck not just use Sonic and Tails' Advance 3 sprites? They're right there. You could have just used them. I would say it's sad, but honestly, this is just common Sega stuff. Fans have made better things in literal days after this was put out. Don't know why I spent like a whole minute ranting on this one scene. But what I can say is though, this shit is so retro. Now, if you recall back in the last video, I spent some time debunking a creative statement saying that this show, Sonic Prime, is canon. But according to some folks, apparently, Season 3 would explain how the show is canon to the main Sonic timeline.
I know you can't talk
Prime
too much
is
about
its
it.
own. Prime is a kind of a special case, and I can't get into it without spoiling the end of the season 1. So,
Right.
And none of this season 1, 2, 3 nonsense. It's season 1. Netflix is just chopping it into pieces.
Well, now that Season 3 has come out, what's the consensus?
It's not canon.
Pretty much nothing has changed due to its canonicity except that weird flashback I literally just talked about, proving that it takes place after Sonic Advance 3. Personally, I don't think this show is canon, and I don't think it ever needed to be. Let shows just be its own thing. I don't really care. Like, every Spider-Man is not gonna be the 616 main canon version of Spider-Man, but doesn't mean I'm not gonna be like emotionally invested in their story. So I'd just say it's best to think this show isn't canon and it's kind of set in its little own thing, but that doesn't really matter. I'm fine with it just being set in its own whatever universe. Also, to add salt onto the wound, Ian Flynn blatantly stated that it's canon if you want it to be canon, and if you don't, it isn't. So I'll just leave it at that. But now that we've discussed the majority of the stuff in this season, it's time to face the finale of Season 3, and to say it's satisfying would be not entirely true. The final episode pretty much starts with Nine after a season of trying to kill everyone, agrees to help everyone, attempt to restore reality by removing all the Shatterspace energy inside Sonic, which could potentially kill him. But with his sacrifice, it allowed the rest of the Shatterspaces to be restored, allowing the variants of Sonic friends to go home to their original worlds. But as well as saving their home, it restored Green Hill, you know, the original one from Sonic's dimension. So, with Sonic in the chance of death, the three Amy's act fast to get Sonic up to the ball, until Shadow tags in and finishes this whole thing off. Until they return home, and Sonic returns to the opening battle from episode 1, where he originally shattered the Paradox Prism, starting the entire show. Now that he's back home, he doesn't make the same mistake twice, but works with the others to take down Eggman, and Shadow, the GOAT, Chaos controls him, takes the Paradox Prism, and leaves. We then cut to Sonic and friends on the beach about to eat some chili dogs until...
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Okay, team, we gotta go back.
All right, next day. Hey, wait a minute, what happened? What happens next? Come on, let's see the next episode.
That's it?
What?
The show was cancelled after that.
No, this isn't me doing a funny joke. This is how the show genuinely ends, just with another cliffhanger. And it's very unsatisfying, to say the least. Like, what's up with all the Shatterspace variants we've just spent the whole show with? Do they not exist anymore? Because Sonic and Shadow returned before it was ever shattered, so do they just not exist anymore? Or what was that at the end with the blue shockwave? Was that Shadow? 9? Someone getting into Green Hill? Doesn't matter, the show's dead! Apparently, by the creators, the reason reason it just kind of ends like it does is, and I quote, "The cliffhanger was always meant to show Sonic is off on his next adventure." I mean, sure, that makes sense, but it just kind of comes off super abrupt. Like, you'd think there'd be some sort of epilogue or something, but I'm gonna guess they really thought they were gonna get a proper season 2 and leave it a little bit open-ended so they could maybe have another one if they got lucky. But for the time being, that's the end of Sonic Prime, and knowing Netflix's history, I don't think we're getting any more, sad to say. And to make matters worse, creator Duncan Raulio, I hope I said that right, stated there's no more Sonic Primes in the work, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Now that Sonic Prime's over, I just feel bittersweet about it, since I started to really enjoy it when it was pretty much over. Besides, releasing each season in one day so people would binge it kind of made every season just feel like it came and went without a little fanfare. Who knows what's next for Sonic in the realm of TV, except that Sonic Movie's Knuckles miniseries, which apparently was meant to release holiday 2023. It's now January 2024 as of recording, and it is still not out yet. But whatever's next, I hope we get a Sonic show that takes place in Sonic's world and have an episodic adventure type style, or maybe an adventure that takes place over the run of a season. Also, can we use more of Sonic's cast of characters? Like, the last time I could say that really happened was Sonic X. That was like 20 years ago now. I know that's just a me thing, but like, outside of IDW, they barely use any of Sonic's outer cast anymore. Like, remember the last time Blaze was in a game? I want her very badly. Please put her in a game. I also hope this show's VAs will come back someday. I'm aware that Devin Mack does live streams using the voice, but I'd hope they come back in a more official appearance. But for what it's worth, I'm glad Sonic Prime got to tell its story and at least ended on a semi-satisfying note. And who knows, I'm aware Prime is very successful, so there's a slight chance that I might get a proper season 2. But I wouldn't hold my breath over it, just saying. Oh wait, fuck, that means we're never gonna get more Ian Hanlon Shadow.
No! Wait! Come back!